to the Srimad, His Divine Grace. Abhaya Charna Vinda Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Iskand Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Dharmasni Paramahamsa Parivrta Acharya Soteris to the Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Haridas Thakur ki. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan ki. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki. Shri Mayapur Dham ki. Jagannath Puri Dham ki. Ganga Maya ki. Yamuna Maya ki. Bhakti Devi ki. Tulsi Maharani ki. Harinam Sankirtan ki. Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki. Shimunis, think. It's Shimunis' phone. Om Ajnanatamandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurue Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagajatam Sagana Raganathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavani Ishvari Vishubhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Adi Priye Vancha kalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mare kabando mad sangin, mad guro man madana, mad nistaraka mad bhagya, mad ananda namostute. Asaru saru tadayan adini chochatakara, hanamuncha karachimam premno rutkatayos pura. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Nastapreshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttamashloke Bhaktir Babadi Naishtaki. Hare Krishna, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 30, text number 44. Ata niryaya salilat Prachetasa udanvata Viksha kupyam gramaishchanam Gam gam rodum ivotritai Ata niryaya salilat Prachetasa udanvata Diksha kupyam drumaishchanam. Gam gam rodum ivortritai. Atanir salilat. Prachetasa udanvata. Diksha kupyam drumaishchanam. Gam gam rodum ivortritai. Ataniryaya salilat. Prachetasa udanvata. Diksha kupyam drumaishchanam. Gam gam rodum ivotritai. Ataniryaya salilat. Prachetasa udanvata. Diksha kupyam drumaishchanam. Gam gam rodum ivotritai. Ataniryaya salilat. Prachetasa udanvata. Diksha kupyam drumaishchanam. Gam gam rodum ivarjitai. Word for word. Ata. Thereafter. Niryaya. After coming out. Salilat. From the water. Prachetasaha. All the prachetas. Udanvata. Of the sea. Diksha. Having observed. Akupyan. Became very angry. Durmai. By the trees. Chanam. Covered. Gam. The world. Gam. The heavenly planets. Rodum. To obstruct. Iva. As if. Utritai. Very tall. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, by Charanadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Thereafter, all the prachetas emerged from the waters of the sea. They then saw that all the trees in the land had grown very tall, as if to obstruct the path to the heavenly planets. These trees had covered the entire surface of the world. At this time, the prachetas became very angry. Please repeat. Thereafter, all the prachetas emerged from the waters of the sea. They then saw that all the trees on the land had grown very tall, as if to obstruct the path to the heavenly planets. These trees had covered the entire surface of the world. At this time, the prachetas became very angry. King Prachinibarshtat left his kingdom before his sons arrived after their execution of penance and austerity. Why did King Prachinibarshtat leave his kingdom before his sons arrived? Yeah, because Narada Muni was speaking to him the story of King Paranjana and the story of the goat. All these different stories. Narada Muni was speaking to him so that he convinced Prachinibarshtat to leave before the sons arrived. He just was like, I'm out of here. The prachetas, were ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to come out of the water and go to the kingdom of their father in order to take care of that kingdom. However, when they came out, they saw that everything had been neglected due to the king's absence. They first observed that food grains were not being produced and that there were no agricultural activities. Indeed, the surface of the world was practically covered by very tall trees. It seemed as though the trees were determined to stop people from going into outer space to reach the heavenly planets. Prachetas became very angry, and when they saw the surface of the globe covered in this way, they desired that the land be cleared for crops. It is not a fact that jungles and trees attract clouds and rain, because we find rainfall over the sea. Human beings can inhabit any place on the surface of the earth by clearing jungles and converting land for agricultural purposes. People can keep cows, and all economic problems can be solved in that way. One need only work to produce grains and take care of cows. The wood found in the jungles may be used for constructing cottages. In this way, the economic problem of humanity can be solved. At the present moment, there are many vacant lands throughout the world, and if they are properly utilized, there will be no scarcity of food. As far as rain is concerned, it is the performance of yagya that attracts rain, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Anadavanti bhutani parjanyad anasambhavaha yajnad bhavanti parjanyo yagya karma samudbhavaha. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagya, and yagya is born of prescribed duties. By performing sacrifice, man will have sufficient rainfall, and crops. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Pastachadi Shatadane Namaste Jivanandaya Dasaya Vanacharine Prabhupada Vallabhaya Nasravadane Agyamatvantakamna Pashtachapatitatma Darine Chakshashanima. So this verse lends to the importance of performing yagya, and it is a very vast topic, and it is one of the main topics of the Vedic literatures is the performance of yagya, and how yagya is the means by which the living entities are achieving happiness and achieving good bounty in this world. Krishna, of course, famously says, Yagyartart karmayon yatra lokayam karmabandhaha tadartam karma konteya mukta sangha samacharaha. In the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it says, work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed, else work causes bondage into this material world. Right at the right page. That's Krishna. So Krishna gives a different, he gives a series of instructions in the 3rd chapter as to what is genuine yagya and how do we live a life of yagya. Because if we don't live a life of yagya, that means we live a life of fruitive activities, sense gratification, by which we're going to be entangled. So if we don't want to be entangled and we don't want to suffer the miseries of material life, one has to perform yagya properly on the principle that Krishna is bhaktaram yagya tapasam. What does that mean? That Krishna is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, bhaktaram yagya tapasam, and all tapas, all austerity and sacrifices are done for Krishna. So many people are doing austerity and sacrifice for money, but they're not doing it for Krishna. They're not doing that. That money's not for Krishna. That money's for their sense gratification. So we find that what is the point of performing such sacrifice? We were speaking just recently that no one in this generation, this younger generation, they're going to be able to buy houses. It's a lost hope. Actually, I was reading this statistic that was saying that the average age for a Gen Z person to buy a house is going to be like 67. So it's not going to happen for this generation. Things have changed, And it's just funny when you go to India, you'll find people who are working the cashier at the Govindas for like 20 years. They live a life as a cashier. They live a life as a shop worker. And they can live a decent life. They can, they go to work and they have their families and they, chant Hare Krishna and they do their life. But in the age of Kali, that's becoming more and more difficult because of the artificial system. No matter how much work I do, I'm not going to be able to maintain. So therefore, one has to become Krishna conscious. One has to understand the principle of yagya. Because when people are unaware of the laws of material nature, they don't understand how to generate what is needed for their survival. They think that if I work hard for my own sense gratification, I will become successful.
whereas that's just karma. We understand prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankar vimudama kartahamiti manyate. Living entities bewildered by false ego think themselves the doer of activities which are in actuality performed by the three modes of material nature. So everybody is struggling in this world, especially now we're seeing more and more struggle for survival, struggle for existence, Prabhupada explains. And as that struggle is increasing and increasing, the living entities are becoming more and more implicated in that bodily conception of life. Oh, I have to maintain my family. I have to maintain my body. And you see how that struggle degrades us to the animal conditions of life, because the animals are also thinking, I have to do what I have to do to survive. They're not thinking that God is actually providing my food. The animals are thinking, I'm providing my food by going out and hunting, by going out and grazing. The animals don't realize that God is the source of that animal that the animal is eating, or that grass that the animals are grazing on. But the human being has the potential to realize that God is the source. Krishna is the source of all these fruits and bounties. And so Krishna gives us a divine system by which we can act and by which we can obtain all desirable things in this world. So Krishna says, perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. So this is the first principle, that we cannot be lazy in this world. Even the Bible says that you will gain food by the sweat of your brow. And so this is the law of this material world. One must perform work. Now, that work is not necessarily meaning one has to go find a job in, the United States of America and work at, the Sprouts, or work at the Walmart, or work at the various places. Work has to be performed as a sacrifice for Vishnu. So if one is working very miserly work, very low work, they are selling drugs, they are working in a slaughterhouse, they're working in all kinds of nefarious activities, whether it be I'm making music, I'm making degraded music. If one is working in that way, how is that work satisfying Vishnu? So if one's work is not satisfying to Vishnu, even if one is apparently making lots of money, that sense of lack is still going to be present. We'll still feel like I'm struggling for existence. This is why we see some people can work so hard in the mode of passion, but they get very little done. So there is a science to work, and this is the art of yoga. So then Krishna says, famously, work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. And then Krishna gives a system. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them, saying, be thou happy by this yajna, sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. This is the prescription of Krishna, that in the beginning of creation, this system of proper yajna was established. And the Lord blessed the world by saying, be thou happy in this yajna. And by performing this yajna, everything will be bestowed upon you. So one is not understanding that all of these bounties come from God, and one is not living in such a way, then one is destined to struggle in this material world. My god brother Hamsa Balaram Prabhu, he's always speaking about how he gave his life to God when he was 8 years old. And, he was a missionary. He's been a missionary and a priest his whole life. And he was saying how he's never had one night where he went hungry, one night where he didn't have a place to sleep. Although he was traveling so many places, he was in Turkey and he went all kinds of different places and did so many things, but never was there any struggle. So Krishna is always providing for the living entity who is determined to serve him. This is something we don't understand. And so there's a misconception about money, that people are generally working for money. And that's the materialistic, dead concept of life, that I'm working and someone is paying me money so that I can go give that money in exchange for the goods and the necessities of life and the external things, extra things as well. But actually, the money is not the goal of the work. The money is the result of the work. The money is the reaction of that action. So every action has a reaction. And so money is that reaction from which an action is taking place. So if we focus on the money, we'll never have enough because we're focusing on the fruit of that action. And in that way, we're not thinking about the actual work itself. Whereas if one focuses on the work and has faith in this word of Krishna, that the work I'm performing, if done as a yajna for Vishnu, will bring about its proper reaction, which will be the necessities of life. This is the actual consciousness. And so just recently, I just completely stopped worrying about money. It just went out of my mind. I stopped thinking about it. I stopped worrying about it. You know, places I travel, things I just don't even worry about it anymore because I've understood that because I'm working for Krishna, because I'm going and preaching, there's going to be a natural result of that work, and that will be whatever I need to perform that work, and then be satisfied in that work. And in that way, when you lose that worry, yagyartart kamayon yatra lokiyam kamabandha tadartam kamakonteya mukta sangha samacharha. Because if you're always thinking about money, lokayam kamabandha, you're bound. Because you're thinking of the fruits. You're not thinking that these fruits belong to Krishna. So in this way, the living entity, he can be so many ways dissatisfied because he's not thinking about pleasing Krishna. I haven't seen him in a long time. Then Krishna says, the demigods being pleased by sacrifices will also please you, and thus by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. This is the proper conclusion. The demigods being pleased by sacrifices will also please us. And thus by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. So what we see in the world today is there's a lack of sacrifice. In fact, there's anti-sacrifice, that they're doing everything akarma. You see that karma is fruitive activity or pious activity, and akarma is sinful activity. I'm sorry, vikarma, not akarma. Everything is done as vikarma. And, they're killing so many animals in slaughterhouses. They're doing so much, illicit sex is it's not just a thing people do, it's a business. And it's a business that propagates more and more illicit sex. So all of these things that are being done are basically destroying the human society because we're going to get the fruits of those actions. Every action has its result. And that applies for everything, of course. Then Krishna is going to go into the famous section here where he says, the devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. What? Right now? Oh, y'all chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the demigods, when they're in charge, when they're satisfied by yajna, everything is provided, and the devotees then offer that back to the Lord, back to Krishna. And in this way, proper reciprocation takes place between men, demigods, and the Supreme Lord, and everything is provided for us. And so this scarcity mentality is a big illusion. It's a big illusion. It's artificially placed upon us because we don't understand the way the Lord works. We don't understand the science of yajna. We don't understand that God will provide. But the animals are working on this principle that everything must work, and therefore I'll be provided for. The problem is when one is dissatisfied with what is provided. I'm by no means a rich man. I'm actually super rich because I have devotee association, but I'm, actually I find, when we take it for granted, those who live at the temple, that we eat. There are people struggling to eat out there in the United States of America. There are people struggling to pay for food. And even people closer to home than you think, a lot of people right now are struggling. And us at the temple, we're fine. And even, during COVID-19, our temple was controversial in that we continued to perform yajna, but we also did very well. We did very well in COVID, and we came out of it. So yajna is so important. We have to satisfy the Lord. There is a tendency, and I've seen this many times, there is a tendency for devotees to, when things get heavy or when things get challenging, let's jump into let's be in the real world now, we're not going to believe all that chanting Hare Krishna stuff, let's get real. And we be practical. We do got to be practical. I'm not saying we don't, but what I'm saying is that Prabhupada had full faith in the holy name. When there was the plague in Calcutta, Prabhupada said, they said all the devotees went out and did Harinam. So coming to Harinam, the genuine yajna for this age is Harinam, is the Sankirtan movement. So the Sankirtan yajna has to be performed. And that involves the whole process of prasad distribution, deity worship, going out and chanting, but most importantly, the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And so if we neglect this element of our Krishna consciousness movement, we will not be fruitful in our endeavors. It's just a fact, but we don't think that way. We think, let's be practical. We're not understanding. We're putting faith on our own activities, that if we do so much, we work so hard, we do this with the resources, then we'll have enough. When we're not actually engaging in the proper element of doing Harinam, doing Sankirtan, coming together and chanting Hare Krishna, then life will be scarce. And also there's a personal element to yajna, which I'm convinced of, is that we do a yajna every day. We do a prescribed yajna. Our prescribed yajna is that we chant 16 rounds, and we sacrifice the following or the breaking of the 4 regulative principles. So this is a yajna we perform every day. And so if that yajna is not done properly, then we're not going to expect to have the bounties in life, the good things in life. And so, of course, we don't chant Hare Krishna for any of these things. We chant Hare Krishna because we want pure love for God. But in any case, we should understand that in that endeavor to pursue love for God, all things will be added unto you. What's the verse in the Bible? First ye seek the kingdom of God, then all things will be added unto you. The apostle said, first ye seek the kingdom of God, and all those things will be added unto you. And so much of the time we have very little faith in God. Even though we say we believe in God, many people don't have that actual faith in God, that He will provide, He will give everything that is necessary. Krishna is so kind. Krishna is factually providing for all of the animals, all of the trees, all of the plants. Krishna is providing for everything. So the thing is all those animals are living according to natural law. The human being has cut himself off from natural law because we're not realizing ourselves as human beings by losing faith in Scripture. We lose faith in Scripture. We lose faith in the reality that everything will be provided for me if I can simply remain satisfied. Materialistic culture, materialistic propaganda pushes forth this idea that you are not good enough if you're not a rich man or woman, and you can't be happy. And this is illusion. This is the power of the mode of passion. And so, the mode of passion works by, first off, one is attracted to the material energy, generally in the form of the opposite sex, attraction, then combination, and then expansion. And this is all okay if done in the context, in the overview of Krishna consciousness. But when one is not sufficient in their seriousness of Krishna consciousness, then there's always a sense of lack. There's always a sense of not having enough, of how we can do better. We always making plans. And we find that any materialist, and doesn't matter if they're wearing tilak or not, that material tendency is there to always make plans to improve my material condition. Whereas the spiritual personality is satisfied, attempting to be satisfied. Because the main business isn't expanding my material position. The main business is becoming Krishna conscious. But this is very hard to find in the world today. But if families come together and chant Hare Krishna, and they do kirtan, then you'll find how there's so much opulence. And I always admire my godbrother Krishna Charan Das. He's fully dedicated to the spreading of the Sankirtan movement. And although he's a grihasta, it's like associating with the sannyasi. When I'm with him, it's like, whoa, this Prabhu is a very elevated devotee, because he's so dedicated to the process of Krishna consciousness and to the spreading of Krishna consciousness, and opening his home up for Hare Krishna Kirtan, going to places and opening other people's homes up for Hare Krishna Kirtan. And in this way, he's spreading the holy name of the Lord. So we have this beautiful opportunity every morning in the temple to perform yajna, that we get to do kirtan every day. So many people, so many grihastas, they don't get to do kirtan every day. They don't do kirtan every day. We have the opportunity to do kirtan every day. And so when you come into the temple and you do kirtan, it is not a thing we do every day, just a ritual. We have to realize that this is the yajna, this is the Sankirtan yajna, this is the most important thing I'm going to do all day. And I am trying to please Krishna by doing this. And so Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardana. Bhavagrahi Janardana means Krishna is pleased not by the beauty of your singing or the opulence of your offering, but by the love by which you are putting into it. So how much love are we putting into this chanting? Love starts with gratitude. Are we grateful to be chanting Hare Krishna? Are we grateful for the opportunity to chant Hare Krishna? So we start this day off with the Mangal Artik and this opportunity to do kirtan, and we should be very grateful that we have this opportunity to perform this yajna and to actually chant the holy name with full enthusiasm, and by that become blessed. It's called Mangala Arti, right? Mangala means auspicious. So auspiciousness is bestowed there. And then, of course, we have our, greeting the deities, Guru Puja, Bhagavatam class is also a yajna. And so we want to do Bhagavatam class in such a way that it's giving pleasure to Krishna. And that is being very attentive, being very enthusiastic about hearing Bhagavatam. What I've found is that enthusiasm is the key for doing anything nicely in Krishna consciousness, is that when we become excited to chant Hare Krishna, that actually allows us to perform that in a much better way than we would otherwise. Then it's just what we're doing. Because otherwise, life is happening to us. We're not happening to life. We're just being caught up. And we're happy that we're caught in the mode of goodness and we're with the devotees, but we can get tossed somewhere else and we're not very conscious of the way we're performing these yajnas. So therefore, a devotee, he's always striving to perform sacrifice for Krishna. He's always striving to do a yajna, to make his life a yajna. And a side detail is, there's this. I just think it's very interesting. Tukaram Prabhu was explaining to me something very interesting. I'm just saying it as an interesting element that I'm putting out there, and not as something I'm quoting directly from Shastra, but the animal sacrifices that you see in the Vedas, they're very much symbolic of the genuine yajna, which is to control the senses, to essentially sacrifice the animal self, the self of eating, sleeping, mating, and sex, or eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And those four things are the animal propensities. So we have to sacrifice that animal part of ourselves in the fire of chanting Hare Krishna, and in that way taste the fruit of the higher self, which is to be a devotee of the Lord and to take pleasure in the reciprocal love that one gains from associating with the Lord. So although yajna is prescribed, yajna has to be done in the proper way. So Krishna is saying, yagyartat karmayon yatra lokayam karmabandhaha taratam kamakonteya mukta sangha samacharaha, that yajna should be performed for Vishnu, who is Bhaktaram Yajna Tapasan. He's the Lord of all yajna. He's the Lord of sacrifice. Adi Yajna is described in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He's considered Adi Yajna. The Supreme Lord in the heart is called Adi Yajna. He's the Lord of sacrifice. And so all the sacrifices are done for him. But one can misuse that sacrificial propensity and perform sacrifices for demigods, which is the karmakanda activities. That one, instead of focusing on Vishnu, focuses on demigods. And this fruit of yajna causes so many problems. And that's what the whole 4th canto is about. If you really analyze the 4th canto, it is practically exclusively about avoiding fruitive activities, fruitive yajnas, because you start off the 4th canto with some genealogies, but once you get it going a little bit, then you have Daksha, who's performing a very materialistic yajna, and that materialistic atmosphere pollutes everything. And so in that materialistic state of consciousness, he blasphemed Lord Shiva, disaster. Shortly thereafter, you have King Anga, wants a son, performs materialistic yajna, has a demon as a child, then everything bad happens. No, actually, take it back. Then you have Dhruva. Take it back, you have Dhruva. Dhruva is also performing a materialistic yajna. He's doing yajna for the sake of gaining a kingdom, although much better than worshiping a demigod, he's worshiping Krishna. Akama sarvakamova moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajita purushaparam, that a broad-minded person with sufficient intelligence should worship the Lord, whether they're full of desires, whether they're desiring liberation, or whether they have no desires. But in any case, we can worship Krishna for the fulfillment of desires, and Krishna will fulfill those desires in such a way that one will not want to enjoy them again. So, very, very sly people, they're like, I don't worship Krishna because I know what Krishna is going to do. He's going to take away my desire to enjoy it. But actually, Krishna is very kind. Krishna, if one is a serious devotee and a sincere devotee, Krishna will give them a beautiful life where they can. Prabhupada, I just heard this morning, and I was listening to Krishna book. Let me see, what was the connection? I'm trying to remember the connection to the story, what story it was. Prabhupada says that the devotees are not bereft of sense gratification or opulence. The devotees have all these things, and then they can be detached and be attached to Krishna. All these things are bestowed upon a devotee. So a devotee gets exactly what he needs for his purification. And so it's very difficult sometimes, and let's put it on the more real level, it's very difficult to be satisfied. Prabhupada said actually that being satisfied is the hardest thing in this world. Very, very difficult for us to be satisfied with our positions, because we're always wanting things. We're always wanting to try to enjoy. We're always seeing people and things and situations that we think are going to be good for us. And it's very difficult. We say, we get real hard, it's all Maya, Prabhu, But it's very, very, because there's an emotional element. There's an emotional element to all of these things. And so, sometimes we have to cry. I always say sometimes being a devotee is jumping around in ecstasy in the morning and crying yourself to sleep at night. Not because we're, miserable, but because we're really attempting to let go of sense gratification. And sometimes that is also a very big sacrifice, which means it can be painful. But we're doing it out of love for Krishna. We're doing it out of love for Krishna. So everything is added to the devotee if he simply engages in yajna. and he'll have enough to be satisfied. So we must serve Krishna in that way. And then moving on from Dhruva, who, although he performed a yajna for the Lord purified him, and he didn't want those things anymore. But what happened to him? He still was able to enjoy those things. So we have to have faith in Krishna, that what he knows is best. And that's a fact, because once we start making our own plans, and I think about that sometimes in my own life, because, there's so much temptation in the material world. And, you can do a crazy decision where it's like, I'm going to make a big change right now because of some material desire. Once you do that, you have exited the jurisdiction of Krishna's protection. And that's when you become totally attacked. We have always a duty. If we understand our duty as a brahmachari, as a grihastha, as a lady, whatever, if we understand our duty and we act accordingly, Krishna will make arrangements for us to do everything very nicely and for us to be protected. But the instant we decide, I'm going to pursue this material thing, or we disobey the spiritual master, the parents, the guides, once we do that, we've lost that protection. And everything is very dangerous in that world, because the great souls, Mahatmanas Tumam Partha, Daivim Prakriti Mashrita, they're taking shelter of that internal potency, which is the service of Krishna. And their goal is satisfying Krishna. Therefore, they're engaging in kirtan, they're engaging in serving the Lord, they're engaging in deity worship of the Lord. So then you have Prithu. Prithu, of course, performing so many horse sacrifices, gets in some trouble. Indra becomes jealous. And you see that there was some chastisement and some conversation that took place because it wasn't necessary for Prithu. He was a pure devotee. And then you come to Prachini Bari, who is performing so many animal sacrifices. And Narada Muni speaks to him the story of Paranjana and the detriment of trying to enjoy. And of course, he's enjoying through the 9 gates of the body. And his whole story, he meets the girl in the forest and all these things happen. And he has to become a woman in his next life. And then you hear about the Prachetas. And so this is the general theme. Once again, the Prachetas, they went to perform, Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki. The Prachetas went to perform sacrifice with the purpose of being materialistic. Right? Because they were under the instruction of Prachini Barshtat. So they were actually going to perform sacrifices to be materialistic. But they were purified by the association of Lord Shiva. So that's the key factor, is that let us be purified by the association of the devotees. Let us have a desire to serve Krishna. And let us have faith that if things are meant to work out, if we feel something like, oh, this is something I feel in my heart very strongly, and even if it seems materialistic, or against what I feel like I should be doing, let me have faith that Krishna will arrange it if it's meant to be. But if I go chasing it, you may get it, but you will not be happy. I can guarantee you that. You will not be happy. You will be miserable. So let us have faith that Krishna will provide. And so my focus in life is simply to serve Krishna, make Krishna happy, and everything I need and everything that I'm supposed to do is going to come to me. And we were finding that. Sureshwar Prabhu was giving class a few weeks ago. We were speaking about how Krishna takes desires and then he gives them back sometimes, and in a transcendental way. I find that just, recently I've been doing so much music and playing the guitar and going on stages. And it's interesting because I never thought I'd be doing that, being a devotee, but Krishna is engaging that somehow or another. And actually, it's very satisfying to me. So let us have faith in that. Krishna has a plan. And then we'll be happy. We'll be happy. So it's very important that we perform our yajna nicely. That means, when we listen to Bhagavatam class, when we chant japa, It's for Krishna's satisfaction. And if we're doing something, if we actually are conscious that I'm doing this for Krishna's satisfaction, I'm chanting Hare Krishna for Krishna's satisfaction, then I think that we will be more apt to be enthusiastic, apt to be doing a good job, be attentive and be serious about whatever activity we're doing in Krishna consciousness, because it is a yajna. And in that way, we also become free from the consciousness of thinking we're this body by being dutiful. That's the whole concept of karma yoga, that one is performing their prescribed duties in such a way that's satisfying Krishna. And in time, there's actually 3 stages of karma yoga. One stage is called Sakam Karma Yoga. Sakam Karma Yoga means I'm performing karma yoga, meaning I'm acting according to Shastra, but I'm attached to the fruits of my actions. There's very little elevation involved in the Sakam Karma Yoga. And the second stage is Nishkam Karma Yoga, where now I'm performing the activities of my particular varna and ashram, but I am not attached to the fruits, but yet I am attached to the work. I am very attached to the work, and I'm attached especially to the conception of being the doer. And we find a lot of people get stuck in this phase where it's like, I got to be very dutiful. And therefore, sometimes, and this is, I'm speaking from personal experience, that this consciousness of thinking I'm the doer and I got to be dutiful will put us in a place where we tend to want to destroy our bodies or to overwork ourselves, which is also not pleasing to Krishna. Because when we're offering our entire being to Krishna, that means our bodies, our minds, and therefore, Krishna conscious person always feels refreshed. He always feels joyful and refreshed because he's not thinking, I'm doing this, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I'm preaching, he's realized, someone who's on that higher level of Nishkam Karma Yoga, they realize that actually Krishna is doing everything. And therefore, let me just desire to arrange things, going to sleep on time, eating properly, everything nicely so I can please Krishna. Of course, this is more of a grace than a action. We have to get that grace, but that grace comes from the humility of realizing I'm not the doer. I have this desire to perform sacrifice. And then there's bhakti yoga, which means that I'm doing everything because I'm attached to Krishna. And so we want to perform this bhakti yoga. We want to do things very nicely. We want to perform yajna. We want to do the Sankirtan yajna. I mean, if you want your life to be good, do Sankirtan. Everything will be bestowed upon you. If you do that activity, if you make that the priority. And so we don't want to try to enjoy spiritual life or Krishna consciousness. That's a religion, like we're coming here to, or, people are born in, it's easier to think that way, but even devotees, for some time we'd be around. It's just a society. It's just our society. It's how we live. And that way it's like religious. It's ritualistic. It's religious. We come to the Guru Puja. We come to the Mangalartik. But we have to take it as this is our own personal spiritual journey. Krishna has put us on this path. And we take each activity we do in Krishna consciousness as a spiritual activity so that I can elevate my consciousness versus being, just a society, a religious society. It's not just a religious society. We don't want that. We want to actually feel the nectar, see the magic, feel the bliss. So I think I'm about finished with everything to say. We can ask for questions or comments. Vishwar Prabhu. A piece of glass broken.
Okay, so it's not just a society. So what kind of society did Prabhupada have in mind when he said International Society for Krishna Consciousness? What does that mean?
Well, it is a society. There's no doubt about that. It's a society of devotees. It is a society. There's no doubt about that. But it's a society that you are living a spiritual life in. You can be in a society and not take the spirituality seriously because you're more concerned with societal things. That means how I look, fame, profit, adoration, distinction, how I'm perceived by the society, friendship, and love. And in that way, one is forgetting about this being a personal spiritual journey that you are on and that you are trying to make advancement to serve Krishna. And in that, I mean, let's be honest, that could mean even within the society of devotees having so many challenges, having your fame totally disrupted, having your, getting your reputation smashed. And so if those are the things we're in the society for, then you'll have very little longevity in terms of actual spiritual advancement because you're more concerned with those things. And so, if I'm coming to Mangal Artik just to look like I'm, a good member of the society, then that's not the proper motive. And there are a lot of people who live and go to churches for that reason. You yourself shared, I think, with your father, something like that, no? About going to church for all the wrong reasons. So if we take it in that way, then we won't be successful in terms of actually satisfying Krishna. That's what I mean. Chandrika.
We all have a past. We all have some scars that have an emotional, wants to emotionally replay themselves all the time. So that tends to happen. And obviously that keeps us dissatisfied all the time and suffering. Yeah. So in order to really be happy is really spiritual life. We have to kind of like not have or release that emotional, samskaras and just feel that happiness. Otherwise, we'll never be able to, right? Feel the happiness.
Yeah, it's a process. We do have these, sinful things we've done in the past or traumatic things that have happened to us, traumatic, sinful things we've done in the past. They can haunt us. And in that way, if you do some sense gratification, it's very difficult to feel satisfied after that because you've done so much, your dopamine receptors are fried out and you need so much stimulation. This is a reality, but we can still be satisfied in Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is that powerful that if we perform the process correctly and we don't make aparadhs, then we can find satisfaction. Satisfaction doesn't mean the pains of material life go away. It is not going to mean that because we will always feel the pains of the body. But it means that you're so full in yourself, Prabhupada says, Bhagavad Gita 270 or 269, one of the two, that the devotee is so full in himself that although those desires are flowing like rivers into the ocean, he's not affected by them. So we do have that param drishna nivartate, that higher taste, which is satisfying us and which allows us to transcend that level of attachment and the lower levels of consciousness. So in the purport to, I believe it's the verse where Krishna says it is lust only, Arjuna, which is the cause of our bondage and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of self-realization. Prabhupada says that one transcends this by spiritual attachment. The spiritual attachment means that we love our guru, we love Prabhupada, we love Krishna, and we love the Vaishnavas, and that attachment to that service will help us to overcome all of those, past activities and traumas. And, on a mundane level, the sense of accomplishment is very, very satisfying. And so if you can chant your rounds, if you can, do some service, you can be satisfied that at least I'm, serving Krishna. That's also very satisfying. And if we always make goals, this is another just thing I'll throw in there because it's important. If we make goals or we say we're going to do something and we don't do it, that causes depression, causes us to feel very disenthused. So it's better not to say you're going to do something unless you're sure you're going to do it, because it really messes with the mind. Bhaktivinoda Maharaj talks about that, and I found that true. Like, you force yourself to do it, or else you find yourself. Of course, some things we're not going to be successful, but we have to try.
So would you say that you know, obviously like the past stuff has emotion and emotional connection. So we instead steer our emotions towards Krishna consciousness, and that will purify that and clear away the samskaras.
Yeah. That the real element, that's true. That's a yes. But this element of we're not our minds, and we're not these activities that have happened to us, and we have to create some space between the mind and the soul. And of course, we understand if we do bhakti yoga properly, janayat yashu vairagyam ganam shayata haitukam, one develops knowledge of meaning I'm not this body, I'm not this mind. But if we're very absorbed in that movie and we're not doing sufficient sadhana to cleanse and reading and chanting especially, to cleanse and purify the mind, then it becomes very difficult because we're caught up in the mind. But the sadhana helps us to actually see some distance. And just that distance alone, what I've found, this is personal, I can say, really allows me to feel like those things are still there. You're still sensing them, but I'm more satisfied in my own Krishna consciousness. So in that way, we have to always remember I'm not this mind. Because the mind is always trying to convince us that we are it. And we are we are our past, but we're not our past. There's only the present. And the present is, we have the free will now to choose Krishna or choose Maya, mind. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, Damodar has something to say.
Say before you set a long-term goal, you should set a short-term goal or two, because by achieving your short-term goals, that will keep you enthusiastic and fired up for the long term.
He's one of my favorites. One of the things he says that I always find very inspiring is he says that going deeper in Krishna consciousness is not extracurricular. That always is super inspiring. We always got to go deeper.
But yeah, he really stressed the importance of the short-term goals.
Yeah. Vaisheshika Prabhu says that you can have a 1 minute goal. You know, like he's always, he breaks everything. He's like, you're in Maya, set a goal that in the next minute, I'm going to be back in Krishna consciousness. You know, I'm going to stop doing this thing I'm looking at here. I'm going to stop that. So you set a little goal.
Why are you calling me out, Prabhu?
calling us. All Gen Z, and millennials are being called out. Okay. Going through our Srimad Bhagavatam, ki, Srila Prabhupada, ki.